Hey, thanks for joining me, everyone. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. It's a Big Idea Wednesday, and I got a fun concept to talk to you about today. Have you ever heard of naive realism? It's a fancy term for a pretty simple concept. The idea is that we see the world objectively, and everyone else is just wrong. It's like thinking your opinion is the only one that matters, but with a PhD. Naive realism is like walking around with a pair of tinted glasses, thinking the world looks the same to everyone else. It's like thinking the color you see as blue is the same color that everyone else sees as blue. But let me tell you, folks, not everyone sees the world the same way you do. In fact, some people see it in black and white, others technicolor. You know, if you're someone who suffers from naive realism, in fact, we all do, might be time to put on a pair of reality glasses, because the world's a lot more complicated than you may think. Take politics, for example. Some people think their political beliefs are the only ones that make sense, because they do, and everyone who disagrees with them, just plain stupid. But the reality is there's a lot of different viewpoints out there. We should all try to understand where others are coming from. So, in conclusion, naive realism, it's like thinking you're the only one who knows how to dance, when in reality, you're just doing the Macarena while others are doing the cha-cha slide. And I gotta update my references because I sound way older than I am. But, pardon me. So let's take off our tinted glasses, put on reality glasses, and try to see the world in all its beautiful, complicated glory. My name's Tom Coffey. This is the Coffee Nuance Show, the best censored commentary and news show live right now. Flame on. Hey, thanks for joining me today, everyone. I really appreciate all the well wishes. I'll talk about exactly my diagnosis in the Aftershow. So stick around for the Aftershow where I will go through and read your comments. But today we got a lot to get to. I want to talk about naive realism because I think it's really one of the most important concepts that there is in understanding other people in the world. Essentially, what they found is that you believe that you see the world objectively without bias, right? That's the thing is, except that others will come to the same conclusion. Sorry, let me try this again. One of the tenets, one of the ideas here of naive realism is that you expect others will come to the exact same conclusion that you came to if you're exposed to the exact same information, and they interpret it in a rational manner, and then they will have the same belief that you have. It doesn't work that way. I wish it were the case. So often I know I'm trying to explain something and someone disagrees with me, and then I keep trying to bring in new information. Oh, well, if you know this, this information that I have, if you read this story that I read, then you would think the same thing that I do. And it just doesn't work that way. And part of it is that we assume that other people who don't share our same view, they must be ignorant, they must be irrational, or they must be biased. When in reality, it may be us, it may be them, it may be both of us, it may be neither of us. It's complicated, okay? Now, just on a side note, the word naive often will have the two little dots above the I. You're wondering why. Why do they do that? It's called a diaeresis. 4 syllables, diaeresis. And that is a marking placed over a vowel to indicate that it is sounded as a separate syllable. So naive or Bronte. Think of Noel, right, for Christmas in French, right? You know, the first Noel, right? Noel. The two dots, right? The diaresis over the E is to separate it so we don't say the first Noel, right? So we say the first Noel, and it separates two vowel sounds. And that's the purpose of it. Is it outdated? Probably, because most people don't know it. Should we get away with it or do away with it? I don't know. Maybe we should put in a dash. That might be easier for people today rather than put it in. It's always difficult for me to find out how to put the two dumb little dots when I'm typing something. So for English, I would do away with all accents. That's the way I would view things, but we all disagree on that. But that's the idea here with naive realism, is the assumption that if someone had more facts, if they experienced what you experienced, they would then come to the same conclusion. That's not true. It'd be nice if it were true, but it just isn't true. We all come to our own decisions based on our entire experience living, but also on other things, how our brain works. Are we as logical as someone else? Right? Think of it this way, and I'll try to put it in a nice way. If there's a really dumb person and they're given all the same information that you're given, should they come to the exact same conclusion as you, but they're dumb? Well, maybe not, right? Maybe they would have to be smarter to come to the conclusion that you came to. Yeah. So keep that in mind. I know I do this all the time. I just want to bombard people with more facts, more data, more points of view, because I think if they get that, then they'll understand where I'm coming from. And let's be real, right? Most people don't understand where I'm coming from. So that's the term, though, naive realism. You can look it up, read about it. And I think understanding that idea is really important to understand people that you don't agree with. You have to understand that to understand why someone would come to a different conclusion than you. So that's the big idea for Big Idea Wednesday, is naive realism. Let me know if you have additional thoughts on that in the comments. And let's look at what we're going to go through today. I've got some good stories. Pardon me. We talked about naive realism. I'm going to give you some updates. That's one of the fun things about doing this. Seems every day there's some updates about stories that I've told you about in the past month. So we're going to talk about some prisons in Latin America and Medellín. I have an update about Shaq. You know, we thought he was hiding out. Turns out it was something different. The IRS may be taxing NFTs, which I'm sure you all are very concerned about. AMLO, president of Mexico, is sided with Trump on something. That's very shocking. And for the good news, I do have a fun story that I think may affect everyone. So stick around for that. But first up, let's get to some updates. Here we go. All right, updates. That's a nice thing. Lots of updates. The mayor of Medellín, Colombia, Daniel Quintero Calle, has announced that the city's council has approved a budget to build a new metropolitan jail similar to the one built by Salvadoran president and inaugurated in February. The planned prison will be built in the San Cristobal subdivision of Medellín and will have a capacity of more than 1,400 inmates. Quintero Calle's plan to build a new prison center are a defiant move against the plans of Colombia's radical leftist President Petro, whose justice minister announced last year that the government would spend not a single Colombian peso building new inmate centers in the country. Colombia's prison centers have faced an overpopulation rate of 20% by June of last year. So this is a picture from the El Salvador prison, where they're not putting up with gang members in their community. There have been lots of criticisms of locking people up before their trial, but don't we have that here in the U.S.? Aren't there a lot of people that are locked up before their trial? Happening right now. So it does happen everywhere. But doing this in Medellín, of course, as you know, that was the center of Escobar's empire, was based out of Medellín, Colombia. And so building a prison there and saying we're not putting up with any gangs or any of that activity, it's understandable. It is understandable, and it shows the friction between different leaders in that country. I don't really have a thought on it. I didn't see a whole lot of gang members when I was in Medellín, but I was not exactly hanging out in the sketchy areas. I was hanging out in a really nice neighborhood near the university. And the last thing you would see there is someone with tattoos on their face, with gang tattoos on their face. So maybe I just knew better than to travel to certain parts of town. But that is interesting, and it will be interesting to see if this becomes more and more popular, this style of prison. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. The pendulum swings both ways, and it seems to be swinging out now as to not put up with nonsense in some places. I don't know. I kind of wish they'd bring that here to Portland, perhaps. But I'm all for people having a fair trial, not being held too long before having a trial. I think that's just wrong as well. But another update that I have is about Shaquille O'Neal. Now, I think last week I was telling you about how he may have been hiding out to not be served notice for this lawsuit involving, I think, some advertising that he did for a crypto company. But now it turns out that basketball star, game analyst, is expected, explained where he's been. And there he is in the hospital. And this was funny. He says, to all the people who are concerned, first, let me start off by saying thank you. He wrote on Instagram on Monday. And lastly, I'm fine. Just had to get some BBL work done, aka hip replacement. But yes, I'm fine. No need to worry. BBL is an acronym for Brazilian butt lift. And so that's funny that Shaq was saying he was in the hospital for a Brazilian butt lift, but he was getting a hip replacement. So we're all wishing Shaq a speedy recovery. Get well. Get well, Diesel. We'll see you soon. All right. The U.S. IRS, everyone's favorite, organization is considering taxing non-fungible tokens. Those are NFTs. on par with other collectibles such as stamps and works of art. The proposed guidance would address the lack of clarity surrounding the tax treatment of digital assets and imply a less favorable treatment under capital gains tax rules, with implications for NFTs acquired by individual retirement accounts. The IRS is looking for feedback for this proposal, and in the meantime, it's going to treat any NFTs like underlying assets. In October, the IRS expanded its tax form instructions to include NFTs and cryptocurrencies. So I'm not sure if you've done your taxes yet this year, but yeah, crypto is on there. They want to know everything, don't they? They want to know, get all up in your business. So an NFT, for those that don't know, it is like an imaginary, digital, out there in the ether, work of art that is on the blockchain. So it's within the, how can I explain this quickly? It's like a trading card or a fancy old stamp that might be worth money, but it's digital. Okay, so it's a digital piece of art, and it has provenance through the blockchain, so you can establish that you own it. If it sounds silly to you, it sounds silly to a lot of people, but I'm sure that if you had more information on this, you might change your mind, but that's naive realism on my part. Tying it all together. Hey, does anyone in my audience have an NFT? I'd like to know, because I don't have one. And if I did, I will say I don't have one. But let me know in the comments. I would like to hear about that from you. All right. Now, one thing that I have tried to do is keep bringing up things that I think are semi-important. And one of them is the President of Mexico. I think that Mexico is so important in relationship to the United States. I think much more important than Canada. Mexico's a much bigger country than Canada is. We all know Justin Trudeau, so we should all know the President of Mexico, AMLO. That is the acronym for Andrés Manuel López Obrador. You can just remember AMLO. And he's defended former U.S. President Donald Trump, suggesting that a potential indictment could be aimed at preventing him from seeking re-election. Yeah, we all know that. López Obrador's support for Trump may seem unlikely given Trump's past comments about Mexico, such as insisting that the country pay for the construction of the 450-mile wall along the southern border. However, López Obrador alluded to criminal accusations he faced himself and said he too has suffered from the fabrication of a crime when they did not want him to run. So that's the important thing here. If something happens to you, you understand it so much better. And AMLO is saying that, yeah, they tried to do the same thing to me. They put up some charges on me so that I wouldn't run for president. He says, I see what's going on with Trump. I understand it. Now, I don't think that AMLO is... He does not have a whole lot in common politically with Trump. He is certainly not a right-winger. But for him to stand up and say this as a world leader, I think is important. And I think it can give you some perspective for that if you're feeling that you don't understand, like, how come people don't see this? You're like, how come people not see this? It's like, well, the president of Mexico sees it. He gets it too. So you're not alone in thinking that this is a political prosecution, because that's what it appears to me. But if you have a different point of view, let me know in the comments. All right, and now it's time for some good news. Time for some good news. Let's see. So here is the story that we have. And this is A Life in Pictures. So here we go. From birth into adulthood, a father takes his son's photo every day for decades. Corey McLeod of England says he'll continue the project his dad started until the end and capture one person's entire life. A devoted dad in England snapped a photograph of his son every single day for decades, and now his son is continuing this artistic mission his father began. So this guy, 66, started taking pictures of his son Corey at his birth in 1991. So Corey is now 31, and he's continued this tradition by taking a selfie every day, even when he moved away to college and later when he traveled the world. It says, my dad, Ian, had the idea to take a photo every day of me in 1991 while having a glass of wine, he said. This is before the internet, so his dad only planned to do it for a few years to make a flick book. And at the time, it was only a small art project, and he felt that he had to keep things going. So he began organizing the photos. He says, I didn't understand at the time it would sometimes find it annoying. He'd be at his friend's house, and he'd have to drive over late at night to take a photo before midnight. Teachers would have him take his photo on school trips. So this was a fun activity prior to the internet. You know, you didn't know that this was coming. And it's become so much easier now to take a photo every day. It's funny, I think back to all the awesome places that I've been in the world where I didn't even take any pictures. You know, pictures were expensive back then, and I just didn't even bother. I didn't have a camera a lot of times. I lived in the Seychelles, and I didn't own a camera. And I think the only pictures I have is I borrowed someone's camera one day, like right near the end of my stay, and I ran around and took a bunch of pictures, you know, and then, you know, took the film with me. So I have a couple of pictures from my time living on that island paradise, but not very many at all. So this is really a cool thing that this dad did with his son, and they're continuing this on. I think what happened here, and now with AI and with these great programs, one thing I noticed on this animation here, they probably ran a script so just to have the eyes in the same spot every picture. So that's really cool. Let me just skip ahead just so you can see some more, like a little further down. And when I get down here near, you know, when it gets older here, it's interesting because this guy looks like a young me. A young, thinner Tom here. But I think that's a really cool project. I think it's good news. I think it's neat that you can start something, not know how long it's going to go, and it turns into a big deal. That's one of the things, is you never know a decision that you make now could affect your entire life. And this decision that this kid's dad made when he was born has kind of affected his entire life. I think that's a really cool, good news story. Have you ever done something like this, taken a picture of something or someone over time? Let me know in the comments. That's real cool. And that's all I have. Stick around in the after show. If you have made it this far, thank you. Hit the thumbs up, the like button. I appreciate that. And I will be addressing your comments in the after show. So have a beautiful day, and I will see you mañana. Peace. Hey, thanks for sticking around, y'all. I do appreciate that. Let's see. What's the big idea, says Duggo. What's up, guys? Hey, hey. Apothecary John. Tobias is here. Duggo42. All checking in on Rumble. What's up? Thank you for hitting the like over on Rumble. I do appreciate that. And it looks like we got 8 people watching right now. So thank you, Rumble. We could actually develop something over on Rumble. I hope that's the case, because that's the only place that seems to have any growth. Not a whole lot of growth here on the YouTube. But and thank you for Gregory for sharing the tweet on Twitter. I hope that makes a difference, but I just want to recognize you for doing that. Very cool. So just to let you know how I am feeling, I went to the doctor yesterday. I have inflammation in my upper respiratory. Turns out my lungs are okay. There's nothing in there, although it sounds like it. My pathways are constricted a bit because there's inflammation. And according to my doctor, it's something viral. It's probably viral, is what he said. Probably viral. I laughed. I said, well, okay, what are we going to do about it? And he's like, well, heal. It's not going to give me a Z-Pack, not going to give me a bunch of antibiotics, because it's viral, right? So I'm just going to get better. I think my voice sounds a lot better. It doesn't hurt as much to talk today. So I'm feeling a little bit better. Not feeling great, but that is the update on my health. But let's go through some of these comments. Miranda's going to watch later. That's cool. Unfortunately, the meaning of rational is just as subjective as everything else. I agree. So Amanda says, maybe we all agree, but we can't tell because language is imperfect. That is something. Language is really imprecise, and I appreciate people that try to make language more precise and not less precise. Words should actually mean something specific. And when it can mean anything, that leads to a lot of miscommunication. And so I'm pro precision in language. Natasha says, if we all thought the same, there would be no conflict, no interesting stories. All stories have conflict. That is true. All stories do have conflict. Naive realism is entertaining. I think it is. Flame on. Let's see. They look like human sardines tattooed. It really is a scary look when you look at these prisons in El Salvador. But you know what's scarier than seeing the prisons with with the hundreds of guys all packed together would be to be in El Salvador and to see all of those guys on the street, right? That would be even even scarier. Hey, that picture is from El Salvador, right? Not Colombia. Yeah, that picture was from the El Salvadoran prison. I picked that because the mayor of Medellín was referencing that, and he said, I'm going to build a new prison in that style, and plan on doing the same thing. And so that's why I put up the picture of that. I'm surprised they had a hospital bed that could fit Shaq. Yeah, they have to, you know. If you've ever been to a waiting room recently, I went to a waiting room, and I've noticed that some of the chairs are now bigger with bigger supports, probably because there's a lot more really heavy people now. And, you know, they don't want to destroy the waiting room. And so you have to come up with things for various people. And that includes having probably, you know, beds that can hold people that are, you know, 600 pounds or something like that. Yeah. Legally says, I believe Tom is a practitioner of voodoo. He gets healthy by passing his sickness on to someone else. You know, I wish I could pass my sickness on to someone else. That would be kind of cool, because I know where I would go. And, no, I'm kidding. I don't wish anyone to get sick. If you owe on NFTs, which currency do you pay in? NFT, it's interesting with NFTs. It's a concept that I think is really tough to understand unless you really get into it. And then even at that point, you're like, what's the point? It's digital. Who cares? That's kind of where I'm at, although I do see the benefit of them. But it's, I think the important part is it's a piece of art, and there is providence to show that you are the one true owner of this digital work of art. That's essentially what it is. A super oversimplified definition. And if you tell me it's more complicated than that, I will agree. It is more complicated than that. Let's see. I do not own an NFT. I may have some and have sold a lot. Oh, that's cool, says DM. That's how Natasha says, legalese, that's how I avoid getting sick. I give my portion of whatever illness away to other people. That's a good thing, and a lot has to do with belief as well, you know. Sometimes the mind is a very, very powerful thing. And sometimes if you feel yourself getting a little tickle in your throat, feeling you're getting sick, you can talk to the sickness and say, yeah, you're not welcome here. Go somewhere else. And it's possible as a placebo kind of thing that you can talk yourself out of getting sick. That's a real thing. Let's see. Fabricating things is trending thanks to innovation in AI, etc. A picture a day thanks to wine. Okay. That AI is just a con artist, zero understanding, just language model. I'm not sure which AI we're talking about there. Cool project. I like the traveling gnome photo project. That's a fun project as well. That traveling gnome kind of reminds me of something they did. I think maybe it was in the early 2000s, late 90s maybe. Flat Stanley, and Flat Stanley would be this. Stanley was in a cutout of I think it was a person. And he would travel to different elementary schools, and so you would take a picture with Flat Stanley and write about it, and then mail Flat Stanley to someone else. And that was a fun writing project I think that kids did. And you could take Flat Stanley to, to different places and take pictures with Flat Stanley. I never did it myself, but it was something I heard about. It sounded cute. Let's see. I can understand that you ask him to do a search for you. That's about it. Okay. I'm very disappointed in ChatGPT 4, says Martin. I've not used ChatGPT 4. I've only used 3. I haven't got access to 4 yet that I'm aware of. And Jody says, here. So that's all the comments that I see today. Let me just check in. Yeah, that's the comments I have today. I'm feeling better. I appreciate all the well wishes and the sending healing vibes through through the internet to me. I appreciate them. I picked them up, and I am feeling a little better. I know my voice is a lot better than it was over the past 2 days. So I feel like I'm on the uptick, getting better. It's beautiful here in Portland. I hope it's beautiful where you are. You're able to get outside, get in some of that vitamin D from the sun. But that's all I have for today. Thank you for liking and hitting that like button, sharing the video. All that means the world to me. I appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow feeling even better for show for you Thursday. We'll see you then. Until then, peace.